Over the river and through the woods, to grandmother's house we go.
Intra gaudet veni, hodie laetificabitur dies. Intra gaudet veni, hodie laetificabitur dies.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of the change. Don't be afraid of the change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice. One more time. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joy. Today will be a joy. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Oh my, what can I say? Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. We are rejoicing this morning. I'm Cheryl Morris, serving as worship associate, and it's such a joy to share this space with Kevin, back where he belongs, I might add. And our brand new worship associate, Carol Nimick. We are still on the path of change, our theme for the month. The title of this service gives a hint of what's in store for us today. Through the river and over the wood. So far this month, we have reflected upon personal and political changes. And today, we take a look at our uniquely American holiday, Thanksgiving. We are a faith tradition that intentionally seeks to avoid complacency and we've always done it that way mentality. And Thanksgiving provides yet another opportunity to question, to doubt, to challenge. We all know that while change can be unsettling, daunting, even frightening, it is essential to growth. Here, as individuals and as a community, we offer a safe place to explore new ways of thinking and being, and to support one another as our lives change in both welcome and unwelcome ways. What's unchanging is our warm welcome to all of you. Whether you're a first-time visitor, longtime member, or just stumbled across us online, we're so glad that you're with us. Please turn off your cell phones, and now off we go.
By placing this basket of black oak acorns on our altar, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are still here with us today, though nearly invisible after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, never given up. And the original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people. We commit ourselves to supporting the Nisenan in their efforts to stabilize their people and to restore tribal sovereignty.
Change Is by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. It's the only constant, and all that change is. It's the passing of things. It is a parade. It is a dance. This change is. It is the river and the stepping that's never twice. It is the tragedy of all that was. It is the fear of all that is. This change is. It is the hope, what may be next, this constant, this change, this ice to water, this day to eternity. Come to the river. Step, move, enter.
I invite you to light your home chalices. And I have some questions, so I'll use this one, Andy. Thanks for the really beautiful, thoughtful reading, Carol and Jeff. Words come to life, right, when in somebody's hands and hearts and voice. So I'm genuinely curious whether or not you care very much about Thanksgiving. So is Thanksgiving a big deal for you? Is this an important holiday for you? Is Thanksgiving kind of neither here nor there? It's okay, but no big deal. And anyone for whom Thanksgiving is uncomfortable or painful or hard, really difficult? Yeah. So we have the whole range. So I thought I'd ask for a moment what we know about Thanksgiving. I'd like to start with the youngest people in the room. So if you're younger than 12, is there one thing that you know about Thanksgiving that you'd be willing to say out loud? I'll repeat it. Yes. What do you know about Thanksgiving? It's really fun when you do potlucks. Now, anytime someone says something you think, that's me, feel free to just make some visual. Yeah. Excellent. Anybody else younger than 12 who can tell us one thing about Thanksgiving? 13 to 17. Anybody in here that's 13 to 17 that would tell us one thing about Thanksgiving? I'm not sure. Do we have anybody in the room 13 to 17? Well, we do, but no pressure. Okay, what about 18 to 30? That's fun. Okay. 31 to 50. One thing about Thanksgiving. Family. Who else thinks family when you think Thanksgiving? Yeah. Other under 50. I love how it's just a holiday that everyone can just be thankful. If that's you, feel free to show that that's you. Yeah. Anybody else 50 and under? Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. No, it's true. Yeah. Oh, so you have a really painful set of associations with Thanksgiving, including the death of your father. Right. Yeah, when we have a potent experience relative to something, boy, that gets attached, doesn't it? For a very long time, sometimes forever. Okay, 51 to 70. One thing that you know about Thanksgiving. I know how to make a really good turkey soup broth. I like that we actually eat some foods that were native to the Americas, these continents. I notice the homeless a lot more, too. Dawn. What was the first one? Rum raisin ice cream. I have trouble eating turkey because Ben Franklin wanted it to be the national bird. Tracy, hello. I like the opportunity to talk about Thanksgiving and its true origin to my grandkids. Yes. So you have this tradition of going around the table and naming what you're thankful for and noticing how beautiful it is to have that experience together, that bonding experience. Yeah. Wendy. The story we've heard is a myth. I was waiting for some of that to come through. I pause and reflect a lot about the myth and what happened to the Native Americans. I appreciate what I've learned and where we've come from in this culture relative to learning that history. Paul, would you put up the painting? Many of you will recognize this painting. This is the true Thanksgiving story. Painted in 1915-ish. World War I, Jim Crow. Notice the level at which the native people are placed, the level of the dog and the children, the child. Notice who's getting fed by whom, when in fact the original accounts of the story had the 5 deer that came with the 90 Wampanoag people, who came many more than the actual Europeans that were there at the time. The Pilgrims are our ancestors. Those are our direct religious ancestors, both the Pilgrims and the Puritans, in this case, the Pilgrims. This is the story that got told at a certain point in time. Thanksgiving wasn't originally attached to history at all. The holiday was just a different kind of thing attached to more contemporary experiences until people kind of consciously wove it back to retell a history, to give a certain sense of the United States and where it came from. I learned something new this week, a couple days ago, from one of the members of B'nai Harim, the Jewish congregation up the road, up the hill, that the Pilgrims, there were 102 people on the ship, 41 of them, I think, were Pilgrims. They were learning Hebrew on the Mayflower on their way over. They saw themselves as akin to the Israelites. The Hebrews had been enslaved, seeking a new and promised land. And on the back of the Mayflower Compact, which is an agreement about how people were going to be together, which is directly related to how our churches are self-governing, on the back of the Mayflower Compact, you can see the English and Hebrew lessons that they were learning on the Mayflower on the way over. Did not know this, right? That doesn't mean they were kind or friendly to Jewish people. But it's another one of those layers that starts to open up our own sense of history, right? And says there's a whole lot more there. So this Thanksgiving, what do you want it to be for you and yours? What do you want Thanksgiving to be? I'm going to ask that again later, but in a quick way, any sense of what you want Thanksgiving to be? Community. Feel free to show with your hand that, yep, that's me too. Community. Connection. An evolution. Changing. Gratitude. Love. Acceptance.
The same stuffing recipe I've made for 60 years.
The same stuffing recipe I've made for 60 years. There's tradition. Somebody said something farther back. Awareness, right. That's one of mine. Appreciation. You just confirm. Want it to be easy. What was that last part? Full of love and connection, right? Easy, not stressed. Fighting for justice. An opportunity arises, right? Given the story, fighting for justice. Anybody else? Yeah. Healing. Ooh, yes. Anyone else? Inclusion. Agree, yeah. Change. Let's leave it right there, right? There's a possibility. Thank you. My invitation to all of us is to keep learning, right? So that it keeps shifting all of these things for us, even as we try to figure out, well, what do we do with traditions that have been going for 60 years? Because I made that stuffing every year. How do we work with this? I would love to sing our youngest members on their way to Kids Connection with this little light of mine. We are ready to sing today. Yes. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all that you did to care for this place while I was somewhere else, all of you who did, which is a whole lot of you. Certainly you get to see it in an active way in worship, right, on a Sunday morning, but so much else behind the scenes. I had a very restorative time. You'll hear more about that over time, I am certain, but truly let go and knew that things would be in just fine hands here. So you made that possible, and that was good in a way that I haven't attended to for a good dozen years or so in that kind of way. So it's really quite wonderful. Also want to acknowledge sadness this morning at learning of the shooting in Colorado Springs at the gay nightclub. Here we are. Here we are. I want to acknowledge that it's the Transgender Day of Remembrance. This year, the count I have, I'm not sure this has stayed the same, is 389 reports of deaths, violent deaths. This is not natural deaths, of people within trans communities around the world in the past year. So each of that service lifts that up. And we lament and cry over the sadness, as well as celebrate the courage, the resilience of the people that we're remembering. Trans women of color are the most often killed, the margins of the margins, right? And this, I know for some people, is the first, or maybe it's not the first, but it's still a very tender holiday season that begins now without someone that you have loved, someone you still remember very powerfully and are missing. I want to hold all those as we begin to take account of what is in our hearts this morning, what we're caring about. And as we hold this silence, as people in the room, if they want, come and take a stone and put it in the bowl of water, kind of representing what you're holding, or as people online chat, I invite you to hold the silence, and if it is your way to surface your own prayerfulness in that time, or your own focus of commitment and intention, knowing that in our midst, both here and online, that some people are in a pain that is almost unbearable. That there is fear wrapped around some hearts so tightly that any movement is terrifying. Knowing that there are clouds of nagging worry for some that seem to follow them everywhere. And knowing that here some have come searching for some small sign of connection, of actually being seen, maybe even being loved for exactly who they are. At this very morning, some have come in search of healing, or insight, or warmth that they do not find at home. Some come in search of a home in which to discover who they are, and some come to bask in friendship and connection already made, and to spread joy from what's happening in their life. Each in our own way, I invite us to listen in. Each in our own way, let us pray. If you wish, I invite you to come take a stone, place it in a bowl of water, and online to type into the chat if you wish some piece of what you carry. As always, this is a time to hold each other at the same time we're doing that looking within. There are a lot of stones in there. And of course, that's just a small piece. I'm about to share a meditation titled Potluck. And as I was witnessing you come forward, I had this sense of potluck, very much like the people online too. When you share, you bring a piece of who you are, right, to this shared meal. I've placed stones for all the rest. This is a sampling of what we hold, but stones representing the rest. And invite us into a moment of thoughtfulness with the words of Lynn Unger. Sure, there are grand cathedrals that proclaim God's glory to the heavens, preachers who shout the word unto the faithful, gilded temples rich with incense and chanting. Who doesn't want to reach out and try to grasp the eternal? And shouldn't we try 10,000 ways to build the kingdom of heaven? Whatever your theology, we all have our religion. This is mine. Bring the best you have to offer. Be fed by what is on the table. Be grateful for the feast.
Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves, as to the only Lamb. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves, as to the only Lamb. Be lamps unto yourselves, be your own confidence. Hold to the truth within yourselves, as to the only Lamb.
You may know the familiar to many people, Over the River and Through the Wood by Lydia Mariah Child. I invite us to sing one verse, the very first part of this much longer song.
Over the river and through the wood, to grandmother's house we go. The horse knows the way to carry the sleigh through the white and drifted snow. Over the river and through the wood, oh how the wind does blow. It stings the toes and bites the nose as over the ground we go.
So there are a whole lot more verses, very much like that. But that gives the spirit of the song. Lydia Mariah Child, or Mariah as she preferred to be called, a Unitarian, wrote this poem originally titled The New England Boys' Song About Thanksgiving. How practical is that? Mariah also wrote one of the most powerful and persuasive books by a white person in the United States in the 1800s promoting the abolition of slavery. It was the first anti-slavery writing published in the United States in book form. She advocated passionately for women's rights and Native American rights as well, although she said neither of those was going to happen until slavery was addressed. She published the first monthly periodical for children in the United States, and it was very popular until people learned about her anti-slavery writing, at which point subscriptions dropped off. And yet, her most famous, familiar writing, what our US culture has held on to and passed down to us is this ditty of a poem based on a nice image of travel to her own grandparents' house, which still exists. It seems so terribly simple and simplistic, especially in contrast to the rest of her life's work, which is really so very powerful. So to bring more of the spirit of Mariah to the song, more of the spirit of her values, our very own Tom, Kate, Catherine, and Taylor have each given the song a bit of a makeover to bring it into the new and ever-changing day.
The NASDAQ and S&P 500 watch the economy grow. We all do our best when put to the test and greed can overflow. The invisible hand is guiding the land and brings prosperity, while workers you mistreated and species deleted, but guns for you and me. Hey!
Under the bridge and up through the woods to the hatching grounds they swim. The salmon know the way to go o'er rock and sand and limb. But up the river and under the bridge a wildfire's coming near. It barbecues dough and poaches roe as up the river they go. Over the woods and through the river the climate scientists go. They see the effects of our neglect. There isn't near enough snow. Through the woods and over the river, how hot the winds do blow. The deadline's near, so let's be clear, to carbon neutral we go.
Through the river and over the wood, we welcome everyone. Lesbian, gay, and all different ways, just share your preferred pronoun. Oh, sorry. Through the river and over the wood to Granny's house in the sticks. We'll shoot the breeze and share recipes, but don't dare bring up politics. Through the river and over the woods, looking forward to our feast with glee. Organic stuffing and gluten-free muffins and a big slice of tofurkey. Through the river and over the woods, it's snack time at UU. With food we grew and fair trade blue. Wait, homemade cookies, yahoo!
And now your turn with some lyrics that Catherine and Taylor wrote.
Through the river and over the woods with courageous love we go. We don't know the way, so many delays, but we'll never give up, you know. Through the river and over the woods, we give thanks to all around. The sphere is here, the goddess is there, the wind, wave, fire, and ground.
Oh, thank you all. That feels better. That feels more meaningful. When the worship team was brainstorming this month's theme, The Path of Change, it was Lindsay Dunkel and Randy McKean who imagined what this Thanksgiving week service might hold, even though they weren't sure they would be able to be here. They recognized the tensions that come with navigating change while trying to hold on enough to the familiar, like the traditions that get into our bodies like stuffing, right? And help give a rhythm to our lives. It was Lindsay's brilliant idea to title the service Through the River and Over the Wood, to turn expectation on its head. Is it possible to rethink the way we get to grandmother's house and better align our rituals with our values, they asked, as we prepare for this most religiously observed of secular holidays? I unplugged quite thoroughly during my 3 weeks of camping in the Redwoods and on the coast. I kept at bay any expectations for what the experience would be, day to day and overall. I let go of all expectations or hopes for what would come of that time or what it would offer. And that was so powerfully restorative, that absence of responsibility and assumption and expectation on my part. The Redwoods are fantastic companions for this. But as I returned from that gloriously spacious time in the woods and eased my way back toward being with you again, I found myself wondering whether the world might be dangerously on fire when I returned post-election. I wondered how soon I should tune into the news again and get ready for what comes next. I flirted for a moment during my prepare myself by imagining the worst case scenario practice. With the question of whether I might need to get a gun at some point. Truly. But as I reflected on the state of things from a more spacious vantage point than I've held in my body for a long while, I found myself thinking about Chet Ramo's ideas again that he had written in Skeptics and True Believers in the late 90s, in which he divided all of us into two groups of people based on our ability or inability to tolerate ambiguity, change, difference. He said this was the fundamental distinction. Can we tolerate ambiguity in our lives and change and difference? I also remembered more recent research in one of the books that introduced political science to the general public. It was called Predisposed. And echoing Ramo, those researchers drew on research that showed that on the whole, liberals are more comfortable with novelty, with nuance, with complexity, while conservatives are more likely to desire security, predictability, and authority. People continue to interrogate those kinds of feelings and that kind of research, but I found myself feeling more understanding, or at least more compassionate for the almost half of the nation that seems to be facing exactly the opposite direction to mine, including people I love. That's part of my motivation. I thought of all that has changed or is changing in my lifetime, and I empathized more deeply for a moment than I had with how frightening and threatening it must all feel to someone whose sense of safety and well-being in the world is anchored in the need for familiarity, predictability, security, things you can count on, authority. So much of the change that I desire and I want to help move forward in the world is inherently threatening and frightening to a whole bunch of other people. Now, while I was camping, I did use my phone to, one, check the weather forecast, first of all, two, to take photos, and three, to check a hiking trail app periodically. I have a tendency when I start out on a trail to get intrigued by a trail that veers off. And then to get intrigued by a trail that veers off of that one. So I felt the need once in a while to figure out where I was. But whenever I turned on the phone to open that trail app, a whole flurry of headers of the most recent text messages would appear. Now, this was during those final 3 weeks leading up to the election. Dozens of text headings would flash by every time I turned on the phone, including one I received several times that read, "Transgenderism is killing kids." I knew it was meant to be a sensational claim and to scare people, but it's even more tragic than that. Yesterday, I finally watched the video clip that came with that text. It speaks of a young trans person who took their own life. So this attack ad against the governor of Michigan was claiming that it was the hormone treatment the young person was receiving, that those permissive adults, in fact, that allowed that led to the young person's suicide, when the deeper truth is so much more likely that it was the inability of people to tolerate or accept or understand that young person, a person whose very existence in the world challenges some people's sense of surety and predictability and clarity and security. The knowledge of what really happened in Plymouth, Massachusetts in 1621 that opens me up as I learn. The awareness of what people of color have faced and continue to face that opens me up as I learn. The outside the simple either or reality that trans people embody that both challenges and opens me up as I learn. Keep other people's warning systems on continual high alert and their survival alarms blaring. Supporting non-binary and trans children does, I think, for that person, kill their narrow assumption and expectation of what it means to be human, of what it means to be a child.
It's a death of sorts to make that shift, right? A death of an idea, a death of an understanding. And that tends to be feared as the thin edge of a wedge into questioning all kinds of things. So what are we to do, those of us who are by nature and or nurture more able to tolerate ambiguity, novelty, complexity, change, and oh, am I among my people in that regard, right? Karen Herring, a UU minister in St. Paul, Minnesota, a literary minister, she describes herself. She recently published Trusting Change, finding our way through personal and global transformations. She wrote it out of her experience of leading support groups for people who were facing powerful thresholds of change in their lives. And her writing of the book was already underway when the pandemic arrived. So she was able to have that whole layer of trusting change in a time of enormous change. I heard her speak at General Assembly, our annual gathering of UUs. And out of her many insights, today I would share this. She points out that change echoes. Change echoes, meaning that those of us who can tolerate it can actually utilize it. When we experience change on a personal level, she writes, those disturbances in the flow that get created when that change is happening at the personal level, they go out and they bounce back from what's happening in the community like this one to us amplified, or out to what's happening in the world amplified. So our personal changes that get ripples going, go out, bounce, and come back larger. And vice versa. What's happening in the world, all that change that's sending out ripples comes to our personal life and takes what we're experiencing, boom, and amplifies it. Many of you have mentioned this over the last couple of years, right? That a change in our personal lives was affecting our sense of the world, and the change in the world was affecting our sense of our personal lives. And Karen says that rather than becoming overwhelmed by those echoes, which is so easy to be overwhelmed, or rather than shutting those echoes out, she said we can make use of change on one level to support our participation in change at another level. She said, because the skills needed for healthy participation in global change are directly related to those skills we need for shaping change in our intimate lives. And the other way around. Addressing those big things, facing those big things can help us actually, if we can use that echo, address the changes in our lives. So they reverberate at one level, and therefore support our participation at other levels. So what's this got to do with Thanksgiving? As I returned from the woods and I started to think about what might be worth saying today, I wondered whether Thanksgiving is worth focusing on. But like the painting we saw earlier of the first Thanksgiving, that historically inaccurate painting, during a time of enormous change also, like that, the holiday itself, via its popularity, its rituals, its repetition, it reinforces by those methods. The question is, what does it reinforce? It holds power because of that. What is it reinforcing? And the larger question perhaps is, what will the holiday reinforce this year for you and yours? The whitewashed painting of Thanksgiving has been an anchor for our national psyche, but we know more of the larger story now, and we have choices. So what is it that you want to reinforce around your Thanksgiving Day table this year? Whether it's at home or here among us on Thursday or somewhere else. What ripples of change might you want to start up or draw on because they're already going? What might you want to do differently this year, knowing that the rhythms of change that you set in motion very close in might actually support your participation in other levels like the community or the world? Who will you invite to the table? Oh, you tolerator of ambiguity and nuance. The who that you might not typically invite? What food will you choose to serve or choose not to serve in order to offer the deepest welcome at your table? Or is that food more important to you? What discomfort of your own are you willing to tolerate in order to offer a genuine welcome to somebody else? even if you're a shy person and not a talker. What river, what conversation, what topic, what vulnerability, what level of honesty, what truth-telling might you want to risk finding your way through, though the cross currents are very strong and safe passage cannot be guaranteed? Might a touch of empathy for someone's fear of change and ambiguity help you navigate that crossing, at least in a more centered way? Thanksgiving has an accrued power in our nation for so many people, regardless of what we think about it, right? So what do you want Thanksgiving to reinforce this year? And what change, small or large, that you can make might help move it in the direction of what you want it to be, what you want to reinforce? Is it possible to rethink the way you will get to grandmother's house, or even whether grandmother's house is the destination, and better align your rituals, as Randy and Lindsay put it, your choices, your actions, better align those with your values? Now, many of you express frequent concern for what my well-being. You want to make sure I'm taking care of myself. And so I thought coming back a little scruffy I thought coming back a little scruffy for a Sunday service might reassure you. I thought it might be a playful way, some visible evidence that, yes, I really took some downtime. Now, I'm going to trim it up a bit, but I've decided to keep it through mid-January. Yeah. When the next part of the sabbatical renewal time begins, because I'm finding that this visual change is helping me stay more anchored in the spaciousness of that renewal time in the woods, in the commitments I came home with to stay more present, to be more forthcomingly honest, to be more courageous in my observations, to be less attached to outcomes and expectations. And every time I look in the mirror, I'm still a little bit surprised. And when I'm speaking to people, I can see in their eyes, this little change is inviting them to see me a little differently, right? It's not exactly the same. And I'm finding that so helpful. It's a very small initiator of ripples that are echoing back, amplified. Who knows? Something as simple in ways that are supporting my growth and my maturity. So what do you want this week's most religiously celebrated of annual secular holidays to reinforce this year within you and beyond? And what small personal change might you therefore make? Or what larger cultural change going on might you draw energy from to do just that, to make that small change, even if it means going over the wood somehow and through the river, which, oh my goodness, sometimes that river. May we each find our way to the house that will hold that kind of possibility. So may it be.
Excuse me. If you were here the first Sunday of this month, you may remember that Kelsey Robertson was here representing our community partner, Bright Futures for Youth. When she got up to speak, she was visibly moved by our service and said that change is basically what Bright Futures is all about. Bright Futures is a strictly local nonprofit that has grown in response to community needs. It began as the Friendship Club, serving at-risk girls from 6th grade through high school. It was the first organization I volunteered for when I moved here. And I've watched in awe as it has grown to serve youth of all genders, as well as those who are without homes. To support positive change in the lives of so many young people, I can think of no more worthwhile organization. If you want 100% of your donation to go to Bright Futures, put it in the white envelope in the collection plate. Otherwise, they will receive 25% of our offerings today, with the rest going to celebrate the work of our own UUCM community. And you can look at the slide on the screen for ways to donate. Maybe just have people refer to the slides. Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these gifts to supporting positive change in ourselves, our UUCM community, and all those with whom our lives intersect. May we be the change we wish to see in the world.
It wasn't very long ago that Cheryl was a brand new worship associate, like the new worship associate on the block. And now, Cheryl, I think of you as a seasoned veteran. Like that's how I feel your presence. And she's working so beautifully today with Carol Nimick, who's brand new to that worship team. Yeah, thank you, Beth. Thank you, Toby, Kate, Tom, David, who played guitar, and Steve, and Taylor, and Catherine. What fun. It was really fun to come back to that group of people and play together. Truly, truly play. And thanks again to everyone who worked so hard in the 6 weeks. when the minister's away, I know it's familiar stuff, but oh, it's different, right? And so the worship team under Gail's leadership and the board and everyone who's been doing things, making things happen, thank you. It's a reassuring testament to the strength of the congregation that those things happened. And we figured out what we got to figure out yet before the longer term. For our closing, a few announcements. Just very, very briefly, we are collecting some gifts, particularly for children. There is information in the e-chalice and on the website, and there's a box out front. Thanksgiving, come for the potluck. There's a sign up out in the entryway if you want to do that. And if you don't make it there to the sign up, and just come, right? We'll share a meal together and meeting. Book group on Sunday, December 4th, once there were rolls, and of course, much more that you can keep track of online always. I invite you to be getting those newsletters and checking the website, those kinds of things. We're working to make that as good as we can possibly make it. It's great to be with you. I came back. Yeah. Thank you. I came back with, it's the first, I've taken vacations and things, but this was the first real unplug where I did not look at email at all. I really left it in the congregation's hands. And I come back recognizing a warmth for you that I feel differently in my body, right? Not that I didn't care a lot and love you, but I feel it differently having been absent for a bit and coming back and seeing you again. And I'm appreciating that a lot. It's really quite a gift. Thank you. Thank you. So I'd love for us to sing The Fire of Commitment. Now, when we chose the music, I wasn't sure what was going to happen with the election and what we might need to do today. So I invite you to think of this commitment as that, how can Thanksgiving be what it can best be, not just for you, but for the people around you. So I invite us to rise in body or in spirit and to sing one more song together.
From the light of days remembered, burns of beacon bright and clear. Clapping hands and hearts and spirits, into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way. When we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings the song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion need to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Oh, I love that people's hands are following along. It's the start of dancing. It's the start of dancing. Whatever our theology, we all have our religion. Yes. May we bring the best we have to offer. May we indeed be fed by what is on the table. May we indeed be grateful for the feast. Knowing that we are not alone, no matter what goes on in our lives, I invite us to share in the community benediction that is the ritual of this congregation to remind us of that. So together as we go out, let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. We'll see you next Sunday after Thanksgiving for Good News, Bad News with Lindsay. See you then.